When Hollywood legend and outspoken conservative James Woods finally spoke out after Governor Gavin Newsom's renewed attacks on President Donald Trump, his emotional message took America by storm. What began as political commentary quickly turned into one of the most heartfelt defenses of Trump's leadership and a powerful rebuke of California's chaos under Newsom. Woods's words brought raw truth, emotion, and patriotism to millions watching. It was late evening when America saw James Woods's name trending at the very top of X. For days, Governor Gavin Newsom had been hurling insults at President Trump. He mocked every policy, laughed on late-night shows, and used foul names like dictator and dementia man. Many Trump supporters were furious, but most stayed quiet. People wondered who would finally answer Newsom. Then, without warning, James Woods broke his silence, the Hollywood legend who never bent to pressure, who spoke truth when others hid. He pressed post on words that would shake the nation. Ladies and gentlemen, patriots, and fellow lovers of this great country, the message began. His words were sharp but filled with pain. He said Newsom's attacks weren't just jokes, they were poison, tearing America apart while Trump worked day and night to save it. The post spread like wildfire. Within minutes, millions clicked, read, and gasped. People wept as they saw an actor they admired putting his heart on the line. One comment read, "Someone said what we've all been feeling." The silence was gone. The storm had begun. Phones buzzed across the country, from California suburbs to Ohio farms, as people opened James Woods's words and froze. His voice carried the weight of decades in Hollywood, but tonight, it wasn't about movies. It was about truth. He described how Newsom begged Washington for $2.5 billion in wildfire aid, while California had just spent over $8 billion on free health care for undocumented immigrants. "Do you think he deserves money from the federal government?" Woods asked. "Not a dime." The response was electric. A mother in Fresno wiped away tears as she shared the post with friends. A retired veteran in Florida whispered, "God bless this man." Fox replayed his words. Facebook groups exploded with comments like, "James Woods speaks for us." Trump supporters flooded the comment sections. "He's a hero." "Thank you, James." Finally, Hollywood has a man with courage. Even those who had never cared for politics felt chills. For the first time in months, the spotlight wasn't on Newsom's daily insults. It was on a man who chose truth over comfort, loyalty over silence. America wasn't just listening. America was feeling. The governor's staff, who had been mocking Trump all week, suddenly fell silent. They scrolled through replies, ordinary Californians calling Newsom a disgrace, a fraud, a man who failed them. Woods didn't scream or rant. He simply laid bare the facts. California was burning. Families displaced. Homes gone. Yet billions were being spent elsewhere. He reminded people of the Pacific Palisades fire, when his own home was reduced to ashes. "I sifted through rubble while our governor posted insults at Trump," he wrote. That's the California he built. The smirk on Newsom's face faded as his aides whispered about trending hashtags. Hashtag Woods for Truth, hashtag Trump defended, hashtag Newsom exposed. Vice President J.D. Vance read the thread from the West Wing, looked up at President Trump, and said, "Sir, America just got a new voice in this fight." Trump smiled and nodded slowly. James always had guts. But the night was only beginning. Woods's words weren't just posts, they were sparks. And soon, those sparks would set hearts on fire across the nation. By sunrise, James Woods's post had become the single most shared message on X. News channels replayed it, talk radio hosts read it aloud, and families gathered at breakfast tables with tears in their eyes. Woods spoke of hypocrisy with brutal honesty. Here is Gavin Newsom begging the federal government for $2.5 billion in wildfire relief, he wrote. Yet California spent $8.3 billion in 2025 on health care for illegals. Do you think he deserves a dime from the American people? The words cut deep because they were undeniable. People remembered the smoke, the sirens, the evacuations. Thousands of acres had burned since late September. Families displaced, lives destroyed. Yet Newsom defended his choices, calling them humanitarian. But Americans weren't buying it anymore. A California nurse posted, "My father's house burned down. Newsom says he's helping people, but not us." James Woods is right. In living rooms across the nation, people wept, not just from anger, but from recognition. A Hollywood star once known for scripts and screens had become their voice. He spoke what others were too afraid to say. The truth was no longer hidden, it was burning through America like wildfire. The comments under Woods's post became a flood of raw voices. Thousands poured in every minute, Californians who had lost everything to the flames, lifelong Democrats now questioning their faith in Newsom. "I live in CA," one man wrote. "This guy doesn't deserve a dime. If he gets it, he'll never be accountable. He just signed a bill that put Uber and Lyft drivers out of work. People can't even get around anymore." Another added, "Newsom defends illegals more than citizens. My taxes go to strangers while my family rebuilds alone after the fires." These weren't political operatives, they were mothers, veterans, truck drivers, waitresses, and together they made James Woods's words echo louder. Fox ran a segment titled, "Hollywood Star Tells the Truth About Newsom." CNN tried to brush it off, but even their panel couldn't ignore the wave of emotion sweeping across the country. James Woods had done more in one night than years of campaigns. He gave people courage to speak. He made them believe again that honesty could win. And in that belief, a movement began to stir. At the state capitol in Sacramento, Governor Newsom's team scrambled. What had started as a routine attack on Trump had spun into a disaster. His aides watched the trending list, #JamesWoodsTruth, #NewsomExposed, #StandWithTrump. Reporters began shouting questions. "Governor, how do you respond to James Woods's comments?" Cameras flashed. Microphones were shoved in his face. For the first time in months, he looked shaken. He tried to laugh it off. "James Woods is just an actor," he said with a forced grin, but his voice cracked. Deep down, he knew this wasn't about Hollywood anymore. It was about trust, and he was losing it. Meanwhile, in the West Wing, Vice President J.D. Vance leaned toward President Trump. "Sir, the country is rallying behind Woods," he said. Trump nodded, his face lit with a rare softness. "He's saying what millions feel but can't say out loud." In that moment, the battle lines shifted. No longer was it just Trump versus Newsom. Now, a Hollywood legend had stepped into the arena, not with political power, but with truth. And truth, once unleashed, has no cage. As morning news crews reached wildfire zones, survivors held up their phones showing James Woods's post. His words became a lifeline. "I lost my home last week," one man covered in ash told a reporter. "Newsom spent billions on outsiders while we begged for help. James Woods said the truth, and for the first time, I don't feel alone." Another woman, holding her little girl close, said through tears, "We've been in a motel for 4 nights. He asks for federal money, but where's the money he already wasted?" James Woods is right. Newsom is an awful human being. Social media filled with heartbreaking videos. A veteran filmed the remains of his burned trailer and said, "Trump sent help." Newsom mocked it. "James Woods spoke for us. God bless him." By mid-morning, hashtags weren't just trending, they were exploding. America wasn't just angry, they were grieving, crying, and rising together. James Woods's voice had become more than commentary, it had become comfort. In Washington, Vice President J.D. Vance sat in his office scrolling through the feed. Every few seconds, new testimonies poured in. "Sir," his aide whispered, "this isn't just going viral, it's becoming a movement." Vance leaned back, eyes heavy with emotion. He remembered his own mother's struggles in Ohio, the times working-class families were abandoned while elites laughed at their pain. Woods's words touched something deeper than politics. They felt like a mirror to America's soul. On X, Woods posted again, "This isn't about me. It's about every firefighter risking their life while Sacramento politicians waste money. It's about every American who believes in fairness, not fraud. Ignore Newsom's poison. Stand with Trump. Stand with truth." Replies flooded in. "Thank you, James, for speaking when nobody else would. You're making Hollywood proud again. We're crying reading this." Even critics fell silent, unable to mock the raw emotion pouring across screens. Woods was no longer just an actor. He was a citizen hero, speaking when others stayed silent. And America was listening like never before. Back in Sacramento, the governor's press conference spiraled out of control. Reporters hammered him with questions. Governor James Woods says you wasted billions while Californians burned. How do you respond? Newsom forced a laugh, waving his hands. Look, this is political theater. James Woods is just an actor looking for attention. But the crowd didn't buy it. Reporters shouted louder, demanding answers about the $8.3 billion for undocumented health care, the $12 billion budget deficit, and the pleas for $2.5 billion in federal aid. Outside, protesters gathered holding signs that read, "Help Citizens First," and "Listen to Woods." One woman cried into a microphone, "Governor, my brother is still missing from the fire. Don't dismiss our pain, don't you dare." For the first time, Newsom looked rattled. His words faltered. Cameras caught the sweat on his forehead. Meanwhile, on national TV, clips of James Woods' speech replayed with solemn music. Anchors called it one of the most powerful messages of the year. The tables had turned. Woods wasn't just speaking, he was winning hearts, one tear at a time. By noon, airwaves were filled with stories that made even hardened reporters choke up. Clips of families standing in the ashes of their homes were spliced with James Woods' trembling words. "I sifted through rubble while our governor posted insults at Trump." That line alone was replayed again and again. It wasn't just commentary, it was confession. A grandmother in Santa Rosa cried live on TV. "James Woods knows our pain. He lost his home and still speaks for us. God bless that man." Her words sent shivers through millions watching. Patriotic songs played softly behind the footage on radio talk shows. Callers sobbed, thanking Woods for being their voice when politicians ignored them. In schools, teachers whispered about the post. In church halls, pastors read it aloud like scripture. Even in diners across the Midwest, people leaned over their plates and nodded. "He's right. Trump fights for us. Newsom mocks us. Enough is enough." For the first time in years, America didn't just listen to Hollywood, they cried with it. Inside the Oval Office, President Trump sat with Vice President J.D. Vance and a small team of advisors. The mood was heavy, but not hopeless. Aides handed Trump a folder of clippings, headlines, screenshots, and testimonies. "Mr. President," one advisor said softly, James Woods' words moved people in a way America hadn't seen in years. Trump leaned back, eyes narrowing as he scanned the bold headlines. Actor calls out Newsom. Hollywood legend defends Trump. Tears across America. He paused at one photo, a firefighter kneeling in charred rubble, helmet off, a caption beneath quoting Woods' post, "This is the truth." J.D. Vance spoke up. "Sir, this is different. People who never cared about politics are crying over this. Woods gave your fight a human voice." Trump finally set the folder down. His tone was firm, but touched with gratitude. "James has always been brave. We'll make sure he knows America thanks him." For the first time in weeks, the president's face softened, not just with strength, but with pride in a friend who dared to speak truth when it mattered most. Back in California, cracks were showing in Newsom's once confident posture. His aides whispered urgently, "Governor, the narrative is slipping. Even Democrats are questioning the spending." Newsom snapped back, "It's humanitarian. It saves money long-term." But his words felt hollow. On local radio, callers dismantled his defense. A firefighter's widow spoke with trembling hands, "My husband died in these fires." Newsom says money for illegals is humanitarian. What about humanity for us? Her sobs made the host fall silent. In Sacramento, protesters gathered again, their voices louder, their signs sharper. "Fund Citizens First." Trump sent help. Newsom wasted it. Everywhere he turned, James Woods' post stared back at him. Billboards flashed screenshots. News anchors quoted it. Ordinary Americans made it their battle cry. And across living rooms nationwide, the same thought grew stronger. Newsom could laugh at Trump, but he couldn't laugh at James Woods, not anymore. What began as a single message from an actor had become a mirror, forcing California and the nation to confront the cost of failure. Behind that mirror stood Trump, unshaken, and Woods, unafraid. By late afternoon, America was flooded with videos from wildfire victims. Ordinary people with cracked voices and trembling hands told their stories, each one echoing James Woods' truth. A single mother from Reading stood before her burned-down home with her children. "We lost everything. The governor doesn't care, but James Woods does. He's one of us, not above us." Her little boy waved a small American flag. "Trump helps people like my mommy," he said. Another man, his clothes still blackened from ash, posted a clip online. Newsom begged Washington for money, but what about the $8 billion he already wasted? James Woods said it best: "This is hypocrisy, and we're the ones paying the price." The testimonies went viral. They weren't political speeches, they were cries of pain from real Americans. Hashtags became slogans shouted in church halls, diners, and gas stations. Woods was right. People hugged strangers after watching his video, tears streaming down their faces. It was no longer about Hollywood or politics. It was about truth, justice, and a nation's cry for fairness. As emotions reached a boiling point, James Woods posted another message. This time it wasn't fiery, it was deeply personal. "I don't care about politics. I care about the America I love. I watched my neighbors' homes burn while Newsom mocked Trump on late-night TV. I saw families cry holding photos of loved ones, and I decided I couldn't stay silent anymore." He urged Americans not to waste another second on Newsom's venom. He thrives on attention. Ignore him. Starve the darkness. Lift up the light. That light is Trump. That light is America first. The post struck harder than before. It wasn't anger now, it was sorrow. Viewers said it felt like listening to a grieving friend. Comments poured in: "James, you made me cry. We're standing with you." Trump and Woods, true patriots. Talk shows stopped mocking him. Even critics admitted privately that his words carried weight. His Hollywood stardom no longer mattered, his honesty did. In homes across the nation, people whispered, "This man speaks with his heart." That evening, all eyes turned to the White House. 4 hours, rumors swirled. Would President Trump respond? Finally, he did. On Truth Social, Trump posted, "James Woods has always been a fighter. He stood up when others stayed quiet. He spoke the truth about Gavin Newsom and defended our great country. America is grateful." Within minutes, the post exploded. Patriots shared it with captions like, "The President and James Woods, a team for truth." Others wrote, "This is what leadership looks like: honesty, loyalty, courage." J.D. Vance followed with his own statement. "James Woods reminded us what real patriotism sounds like. This is a wake-up call for America." The response left viewers sobbing. Seeing Trump and Woods, two men from different worlds, stand united against lies touched something deep in the nation's heart. At rallies, crowds began chanting both names together: "Trump, Woods, Trump, Woods." And as the chants echoed, one truth became clear: Gavin Newsom's insults had backfired. His cruelty had awakened a movement he couldn't silence. By evening, towns across California and beyond were lit, not by flames, but by candles. Families gathered in church parking lots, town squares, and school gyms. They prayed for wildfire victims, for the nation, and for strength. In Fresno, hundreds held hands, whispering James Woods's words as if they were scripture: "Ignore the poison. Lift up the light." A woman, tears running down her cheeks, said softly, "I've never quoted an actor before, but tonight, I believe him." Children held small flags while pastors read Woods's posts aloud, their voices breaking as they repeated, "Trump is fighting tooth and nail to save our nation." The crowd murmured back, "Amen." Photos of the vigils spread online. Soon, hashtags weren't just political slogans, they were prayers. Hashtag Pray for America, hashtag Woods was right, hashtag Stand with Trump. Reporters captured images of firefighters kneeling with families, their helmets beside their candles. A veteran whispered to his son, "This isn't just politics. This is survival." Woods gave us courage to stand. The nation wasn't just watching anymore, it was uniting, one tear at a time. James Woods sat alone at his desk, scrolling through thousands of messages, videos of vigils, families quoting him, firefighters thanking him. His eyes welled up as he whispered, "I just spoke my heart, and America heard it." On X, he posted again, "Patriots, I'm no hero. I'm just an American who loves this country. But your courage, your prayers, your tears, they prove America is still alive. Stand strong. Stand with Trump. Stand with truth. The response was overwhelming. Veterans sent him folded flags. A farmer posted a video holding his daughter. "James, you gave my family hope tonight. God bless you and Trump." For the first time, Woods realized he wasn't just an actor anymore. He was the voice of millions of silent Americans, ignored, mocked, and belittled. News channels now called it the Woods effect. Analysts admitted they hadn't seen such an emotional wave in years. Even critics couldn't deny that James Woods had shaken the nation. He wasn't reading lines from a script, he was writing America's heart in real time. At the governor's mansion in Sacramento, the mood was grim. Newsom paced the floor, his polished confidence cracking under pressure. Aides tried to spin the story, but nothing worked. "Governor," one aide said nervously, "even your supporters are questioning the spending. The wildfire victims are siding with Woods." Newsom slammed his hand on the desk. "He's just an actor. Why is he winning this battle?" But outside his gates, protesters shouted with candles in hand, "Fund citizens first." Woods spoke the truth. "Trump fights for us." National media replayed the chants. The smirk that once defined Gavin Newsom had vanished. He looked cornered, exposed, and isolated. Meanwhile, Vice President J.D. Vance appeared on Fox with a quiet but firm statement. What James Woods did wasn't politics, it was patriotism. He reminded us that truth can still break through lies. And that's why America is listening. As the segment aired, Americans across the country nodded through tears. They didn't see an actor. They didn't see a politician. They saw truth rising against hypocrisy. For Gavin Newsom, the walls were closing in faster than he could spin. By the next morning, America was no longer just reading James Woods's posts, they were living them. TV stations aired nothing else. Even breakfast shows opened with his words, calling them the most powerful speech never given on a stage. A farmer in Iowa broke down on live radio. "My father fought in World War II. He told me America would always stand for truth. James Woods made me believe that again." In Chicago, a group of firefighters gathered on the steps of a burned-out building, holding up a sign that read, "We stand with Woods. We stand with Trump." Their photo went viral. Across the country, ordinary Americans poured their hearts out. A widow whispered into her phone camera, "Governor Newsom says it's humanitarian to spend billions on illegals. What about humanity for me? I'm raising 3 kids alone after the fire took my husband." Her tears mirrored those of millions. What began as a single post had become America's cry, a cry Newsom could no longer silence, no matter how many insults he hurled at Trump. James Woods woke up to a tidal wave of messages. His phone buzzed non-stop, firefighters, veterans, mothers, pastors, strangers, all calling him their voice. He sat at his kitchen table, his hands shaking as he read them. One message stood out. It was from a teenage girl in California who had lost her home. "Mr. Woods, you made my dad cry for the first time in my life. Thank you for telling the truth." Woods put his hand over his mouth. For all his years in Hollywood, all the roles, none of it compared to this. He whispered, This is why I spoke out." Then he posted again. "America, you are the heroes. You, the families rebuilding, the firefighters risking it all, the patriots standing tall. I'm just one voice, but together we are a chorus of truth." The post shattered records. Within hours, it became the most shared message in the nation. Networks called it the heart of America. James Woods was no longer just speaking, he was carrying the people's cry, and they carried him in return. Governor Gavin Newsom held another press conference, hoping to regain control. He smirked, forcing a laugh. James Woods is an actor, not a policymaker. California stands by its humanitarian programs. But the press wasn't playing along this time. A reporter interrupted, "Governor, wildfire victims say you abandoned them. Families are quoting James Woods more than you. How do you respond to their pain?" Newsom stammered, then snapped, "I won't dignify political theater." His words were clipped and cold. Within minutes, clips of his dismissive tone went viral alongside videos of crying families. The contrast was brutal. On one side, victims quoting Woods through tears, on the other, a governor shrugging off their suffering. Vice President J.D. Vance went on Fox News hours later, his voice calm but firm. Governor Newsom mocks. James Woods comforts. That's the difference. One tears people down, the other lifts them up. The clip spread across America like wildfire. People nodded, cried, and whispered, "Woods is right. Trump is right. We see the truth now." And for Newsom, the spin was gone. The people had chosen who they believed. By evening, something remarkable was happening. Across America, people began lighting candles in their neighborhoods. In Los Angeles, a group of wildfire victims stood outside the ruins of their homes, holding candles and quoting James Woods, "Ignore the darkness. Starve it out." In Ohio, families gathered around town squares, praying aloud for strength and for President Trump. Children held handmade signs, "We believe in truth," and "Woods spoke for us." A video from a small Texas town brought the internet to tears. A boy no older than 10 stood before a crowd and read James Woods's words slowly. "Ladies and gentlemen, patriots, and fellow lovers of this great country," his voice cracked. His mother hugged him tightly, whispering, "That's America, son. That's who we are." Millions tuned in online. Hashtags like #WeStandWithWoods and #TruthForTrump trended at #1. For once, the nation wasn't fighting, it was mourning, praying, uniting. And through it all, James Woods sat quietly in his home, watching streams of ordinary Americans carrying his message forward. His eyes watered. He whispered to himself, "This isn't my voice anymore. It's theirs." Governor Newsom tried again the next morning, holding a carefully staged press conference surrounded by advisers. He repeated the same lines, "Trump is dangerous. James Woods is just an actor chasing relevance." But this time, the people pushed back in real time. Reporters read live comments flooding their feeds. "Governor, what about the $8 billion for illegals when we can't even rebuild our homes?" Another reporter asked sharply, "Do you think calling wildfire victims concerns political theater is leadership?" Newsom's smile faltered. His polished tone cracked into visible irritation. He scolded the press, calling their questions loaded, but the damage was done. Clips spread across X, showing his dismissive shrug beside footage of crying families reading Woods's post. The contrast broke hearts and hardened anger. Outside the Capitol in Sacramento, hundreds of protesters gathered, many holding signs with Woods's face beside Trump's. One read, "Two men. One truth." Another, Woods spoke. "We answered." Newsom tried to escape through a side exit, but cameras caught him looking rattled, his usual swagger gone. America saw something it hadn't seen before, a governor who looked small, weak, and cornered by truth. The White House press team announced that President Donald J. Trump himself would make a statement. The anticipation was electric. Americans huddled around screens, waiting. Then Trump appeared, calm yet firm, flanked by Vice President J.D. Vance. He began with words that sent chills. James Woods spoke not just for himself, but for millions of Americans forgotten by leaders who mock, insult, and abandon them. He showed courage. He showed love of country. And for that, America thanks him. The room erupted in applause. Trump leaned forward. Governor Newsom wastes billions while asking for billions more. Meanwhile, families suffer, firefighters risk their lives, and California burns. That is not leadership. That is betrayal. He paused, his voice lowering. But America will not fall, not while patriots like James Woods, and millions of you, stand for truth. J.D. Vance added softly, "Sometimes it takes an actor to remind us what real leadership looks like." The broadcast ended with tears across living rooms nationwide. People weren't just cheering Trump, they were crying with Woods, with every victim, with every voice that had finally been heard. It was no longer politics. It was a movement. The morning after Trump's statement, the streets of several American cities filled with something no one expected. Peaceful marches carrying candles, flags, and James Woods's words written on cardboard signs. In Sacramento, a group of wildfire survivors walked side by side carrying a banner that read, $8 billion for illegals. Nothing for us. In Los Angeles, Uber and Lyft drivers whose jobs were threatened stood shoulder to shoulder beneath a giant banner that said, "Truth doesn't burn." They joined the march, honking their horns in unison. One clip from New York brought the internet to its knees. A Vietnam veteran, tears streaming down his face, said into a reporter's mic, "Trump fought for us in Washington. Woods fought for us with his voice. Who fights for us in California? Not Newsom." The chant rose across the marches, "Trump, Woods, America first." It wasn't chaos, it was unity. Families, veterans, workers, and even children chanted together, their voices echoing across the nation. James Woods sat at home watching the footage. His hands trembled. For decades, he had been an actor. Now, he was watching his own words spark something bigger than himself, a march of the forgotten, finally remembered. Governor Gavin Newsom tried again to fight back, but this time his mask slipped. At a late-night press conference, he lashed out at reporters. "James Woods is nothing but a washed-up Hollywood has-been. You're letting a B-list actor control the national narrative." The reaction was instant and devastating. Clips of his tirade were paired online with images of crying families holding Woods's words in their hands. One viral caption read, "When the truth hurts, the liar screams." Meanwhile, Newsom's request for $2.5 billion in federal wildfire relief looked emptier by the hour. Critics blasted him relentlessly. "If you can spend $8 billion on health care for illegals, why beg Washington for more?" Even Californians who once supported him began to turn. A young woman whose father was a firefighter said through tears on local TV, "My dad sleeps 3 hours a night fighting flames while Newsom plays politics." James Woods gave us hope. Newsom gave us excuses. Newsom's polished image shattered. He wasn't the confident governor anymore. He looked cornered, defensive, exposed. And America, with every passing hour, turned further away from him. Then the White House released a surprise update. President Trump had personally called James Woods. The news stunned the country. Trump's statement was short but powerful. James Woods spoke truth. "I thanked him, and I told him America is proud of him. Together, we fight for the people, not the elites who abandoned them." Shortly after, Woods posted, "Patriots, I just got off the phone with President Trump. He told me something I'll never forget. The truth always wins. I believe that, and I believe in you." The internet exploded. Memes, videos, and messages flooded social media. Hashtags like #TrumpandWoods trended worldwide. Families shared screenshots of the posts with tears in their eyes, whispering, "Finally, someone heard us." Vice President J.D. Vance appeared on Fox News that night, his voice calm but emotional. "What James Woods reminded us is simple," he said. "Patriotism is not about position or office, it's about truth. And today, the truth is stronger than lies." For millions of Americans, the image was now burned into their hearts. Trump leading, Vance supporting, and Woods standing as the unexpected warrior by their side. The nation had chosen its heroes. By the next morning, the clip of James Woods's full message had spread to every corner of the nation. Schools, diners, veterans' halls, even churches. People were playing it on loudspeakers. Families huddled around phones as if listening to a fireside chat. In Dallas, a teacher paused her lesson, tears in her eyes, and played Woods's words for her students. "Listen," she said softly. "This is what courage sounds like." In Ohio, J.D. Vance watched the replay with a group of factory workers. When Woods's trembling voice said, "Trump is fighting for the America we love, while Newsom sells it away," men who rarely cried wiped their faces. Even reporters who once dismissed Woods admitted they were shaken. One columnist wrote, "This wasn't acting. This was raw truth." Woods reminded America why patriotism still matters. By evening, hashtags like #WoodsTruth and #AmericaListens were trending worldwide. Yet the most powerful reaction came from wildfire victims in California. On camera, one woman clutching her soot-stained Bible whispered, "I lost my home, but I didn't lose hope. James Woods gave that back to me." The whole nation, for a moment, stood still, listening. That night, Fox News aired a live segment titled James Woods vs. Gavin Newsom, America Reacts. Woods appeared via video, his eyes red but his voice steady. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, "I never thought words from an old actor would mean this much. But this isn't about me, it's about truth. It's about Donald J. Trump, a man who has carried the weight of a nation while others mocked him. It's about the people of California, abandoned while their governor spends billions on illegals, yet begs Washington for billions more. The camera cut to the studio audience, firefighters, truckers, parents. They were weeping openly. Then Woods's voice cracked. "I watched my own home burn to ash. Newsom mocked me. But I still believe in America, because I see a president who fights for us, and I see everyday heroes. You, the people, who refuse to give up." The silence that followed was thunderous. Viewers across the country sobbed. Social media exploded with comments like, "I'm crying with him. This is the speech of the year." Even Vice President J.D. Vance posted, "James Woods just gave America back its voice." For millions, it was the breaking point. The tears they had held back finally fell. As the program closed, James Woods delivered one final line. "We can't ignore the darkness anymore, but we don't have to feed it either. Stand with President Trump. Stand with truth. And stand with me, because I'm standing with you." The camera lingered on him as he wiped his eyes. Across America, people clapped in living rooms, cheered in bars, and prayed in churches. It wasn't just politics anymore, it was personal. Comment sections overflowed with love. "God bless Trump. God bless Woods. This man made me cry tonight. I'll never forget this moment." Even those who had never followed politics felt the weight of his words. America had been shaken awake, united in emotion, patriotism, and resolve. If James Woods's courage and President Trump's fight touched your heart tonight, keep this fire alive. Hit that subscribe button, drop a like, and share your thoughts in the comments below. I want to hear every tear, every reaction, every prayer. And if you want to go even deeper, join our membership family to unlock special features and stand shoulder to shoulder with patriots across this great country. Together, we are stronger. Together, we rise.